Let's talk about JavaScript modules. So in modern JavaScript, we can easily reuse functions, data, and all these things, right? That didn't used to be like that in the past, not a long time ago. It was much more complicated to link and to reuse existing functionality. Thankfully today we got JavaScript modules. I'm sure you've seen many times things like import, export, yeah? So today I'd like to play a bit around these principles. How do we export a piece of functionality? How do we import it afterwards? What different ways we have to import and export and all these sort of things. Just FYI that the majority, or let me rephrase that, all the JavaScript we're learning is valid for front-end and back-end, right? We can work on the JavaScript in the browser, we can work on the JavaScript in Node. Once you start working on task number 18, you'll write server-side JavaScript. However, the way we import and export modules is different. It's one of the subtle differences. Node is not fully supporting the ES6 standard yet. So you will see that even though the fundamentals are the same, you have a file, you export it and you import it somewhere else, the syntax, the way you type it is slightly different. And this is likely to change at some point in the near future. So I'm expecting Node to offer full support to ES6 modules at some point, not far, hopefully. Anyway, so here we got our React component. Welcome to Codery, nothing particularly exciting in here. So what I would like to do is to create a new, I want to create a new file to display the username details. Let me play a bit with the brightness of the screen. Yeah, not ideal, right? It's a very bright day. Weekend is coming. Anyway, I hope you can see the screen. So the very first thing I would like to do is, you see on my left-hand side, I'm going to create a new file. Yeah, so when we talk about import-export, it's because we want to work with separate files, technically speaking called modules. So I'm creating a new file, and then name of the file will be user-utils. So I want to have a bunch of methods to calculate and to manipulate user data. So first of all, let's create a function get full name. So the function will receive a user and it will return user.firstName plus user.lastName, or if you prefer, we can use backticks. I mean, I'm not talking about anything you don't know already, right? So I'm just preparing the example a bit. Oops. Right? We have a getFullName function that once it receives a user, it returns first name space last name. But now my question is, if we want to use that function here, yeah, let me present you the problem. So let's create a state full component. You already know state, right? You learned that on task number 8 or something, or 7 or 9. So I want to create a some state in the app component. So I'll type the constructor. This is also part of the intermediate training on React, if that then helps. So my state, I'll have a user that has first name Peter, last name Williams, something like that. Yeah, and super, as someone said, to make sure we don't have any problems. So I got my state with basic user details, first name and last name. And I want to display them here. So I want to have some tag somewhere saying welcome, comma, and then the full name of the user. Obviously, I can hard code the same logic, right? So I can do this.state.firstName space this.state.lastName. So technically speaking, we can do that. user, right? This is the user.first name and this is the state.user.last name. And you see it works. But the thing is, if we want to say welcome to our user many times, I don't want to type all these things all the time, right? What happens if tomorrow we decide to incorporate, apart from the first name and last name, the email address? Welcome, Peter Williams, peter@gmail.com, whatever, yeah? We don't want to change that many times. That's why I created a function, so that function is then responsible to decide the greeting, to display the, not the greeting, but at least to combine the different tokens belonging to the user name. So now the question is, even though that's correct, in the long term that won't scale. So I want to bring that code from user utils, I want to bring it to my app.js. So how can we do that? Vincent?
Do you mean export from another file?
Yeah.
So create a new file.
I created a new file.
Export default.
Export default. We'll see later on what the default means. But yeah, so now, essentially, this function is available to whoever is interested in consuming it. So, because now that the function is public, how do we use it here? Import what? Get full name from. Then we need to set the relative path to the component. At the moment, it's on the same folder. So look, thanks to VS Code, I can navigate until I can hopefully find it. I think I created it on the same folder. Here it goes at the bottom, right? We don't necessarily have to put the extension of the file because the server will figure out. But to be honest, what happens if we got user-utils.js, user-util.css, user-utils. We may have multiple files with the same name and different extensions. So generally speaking, the system, so this is under the hood running Webpack. Have you heard about Webpack? So Webpack is a bundling tool. It's a system that every time you save a file, it bundles everything and it delivers it to the browser, right? Thankfully, we probably you didn't even know we were running Webpack, but that's a beautiful thing because it means that at the time we created the app with Create React App, that process already installed Webpack for us. So that should be transparent. But under the hood, there's a technology that is enabling the integration system. So according to Webpack, whenever there's a file like ./user-utils, first of all, it will see if there is any JavaScript file with that name. If there is a JavaScript file with that name, the majority of the files you'll be importing will be JavaScript files. Then that one will be the imported one, right? So that's all good. If you are not sure or you don't have multiple files or whatever, it's okay. You can put it .js. It doesn't hurt. That's fine. All right. So then we imported the get full name. And how do we use it now in the render function of our app.js? Curly braces. Get full name. And then? Right, Vincent. Sorry. I don't want to hear your opinion. Of course, I won, but I would like to hear others as well, right? No, your fault. You're doing really well, but I want to see everybody else's opinion. So Vincent clearly understood how this works. I want to see that everyone else also understands that. So what do we pass here inside of the parentheses? User.firstname. Proposed by Patrick. Doesn't really like it. Throws an error. User is not defined. dot state dot user dot first name. Oh, welcome and define. Why? Look at the file.
Without the dot first name on it.
Correct. Only the user object, right? And it works. So we've seen a very basic integration between two components. One exposes a function called getFullName globally, so everyone else can import it and then do whatever you want with it. Right, and that's all good, but then our app starts growing, and then we want to have another function publicly available. So our function will be function get email. Again, takes the user and return user.email. And I want to use that function from my app.js. So I need to export and import. But how do we do that? Can we do again export default? Why not, Nilofer? Abdul, what do you think?
I'm not sure how the code is arranged.
Yep.
But you have to place a command somewhere to export all the functions from this one.
Okay, so we're already exporting the first one. How do I export the second one? I don't want to add any extra line. I want to, whatever I need to do, I want to do it here. Correct. Patrick is right. Export without default. You can only have one default, which makes sense because that's the default, right? One default exported logic, function, whatever in your component. However, you can export multiple non-default functions. And now, how do we import it? Get email. In a comma, I heard comma like that. Why brackets, Abdul? Everything. Okay. Everything like that. Let me hide the browser, otherwise it's spoiling the outcome. Okay, good. So we got the first name, we got the last name. Let me add an email. That could be foo@gmail.com, whatever, right? And now, how do we invoke, let's say that welcome, and then we want to show another message, h3, your email is what? Get email, and then what? This dot state dot user, right? Something like that. Let's see what happened. I'll show you in a second. No, 2 minutes. Yeah, just give me a second. Yeah, here you go. Right, it's not working, I'm afraid. Attempted to import getFullName is not exported. getFullName is not exported. That's correct. This is very important, guys. Whenever you export something as default, it has to be outside of the curly brackets. And then every non-default export should be inside in a comma-separated list. So obviously you can export 20 things, but all these things should go inside. And now, as you can see, the code works perfectly. Does it make sense? Any questions? What happened if I rename getFullName? Again, yeah. So, sorry about that. It's a bit complicated to work in that screen, but I'll do my best. So what happened if instead of getFullName, I rename it to Get Brexit, deal? Will it work or not?
It will work. 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 It will work
It's a smart answer. Let me rename it. Get weekend deal. It's a bit more positive, right? Less controversial. Cool. You know, and that's the basics. If eventually one day you do talks and you speak in front of an audience, this is very personal, but I like to talk about controversial things. You can clearly see A plus 1 equals 2, no one paying attention. A plus B equals 2, Brexit plus Trump equals, everyone, who the name is, right? It's good to, get the attention from your audience. Right, get weekend deal. Will this work or not?
What was the default from
The default is get full name, but I'm exporting a function called get full name, but I'm importing a function called get weekend deal. Ooh, Richard is smiling, and when Richard smiles, that means he's right, probably, right?
it should work because default.
That's correct, Vincent. That's correct. When you export default, you can only export one thing as a default, right? So that means that you can do whatever you want, you can rename it, even get Brexit deal, even in that case, exceptionally speaking, it will work, right? If I show you the code, you see it still works. Obviously, that name is horrible, but the idea is that you can rename things. You can rename things. Can I rename get email, for instance?
No,
Why not?
because now we're looking within the file to see which function we want.
That's correct. Look at what happened, however, if I rename get email to get Richard smile. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work because opposite to the default, the non-default exports, they have to be literally matched, right? So if I have a method called get Richard smile, I'm not exporting anything here with that name, right? It fails. Look, attempted import error. Get Richard smile is not exported from user utils, unfortunately, right? So in that particular case, we need to be strict, and just put the name of the method that we're exporting. And once we do that, hopefully it will work. Oh, it was here. Yeah, see, now it works fine. Any questions? Let me present you another problem. So we got a file called user utils, but then I'm going to create a new file, literally copy it, called admin utils, similar file, right? Admin utils. And as part of admin utils, I also want to have the same functions, but because this is an admin, I'll add Mr. in front of it. And then on the email, the example is a bit silly, to be honest. I don't know what to put on the email for an admin, but I'll make something up, right? So with some exclamation marks. So the message here is we've got two files with the same methods, with the same method names. The logic may be different, fair enough, but the name of the methods are the same. So now the question is, back to my app.js, I got a user and I got an admin, yeah, with a different name. Yep. And I want to display both the user and the admin. So we know how to do it with the user. So let me change the markup a bit. User details, and then name and email. And then I'll copy it to admin details. But now the question is, how do we import the same methods from a different file? Can I simply do the same thing? Can I do get full name, get email from admin utils, and then can I go back? The thing is, can you see the problem? We got two methods with the same name doing different things. We have a conflict that's not valid in JavaScript. We cannot reuse the same function name multiple times. how can we solve the problem?
For the get full name, you can change that because it's default.
That's correct. That's correct. Someone may be thinking, hey, go to user details and rename it, right? Yes, we can do that. But bear in mind that sometimes you don't have access to that code. That could be an external library. So you don't want to modify the name of your functions every time there is a conflict, right? You don't want to do that. So as Richard proposed, with the defaults, that's easy peasy, because as we can rename it to get user full name and get admin full name. Yeah? And then, obviously, we need to rename them at the bottom, get user full name and get admin full name. And that's good. The default is okay, but pay attention to the error, failed to compile. It's not complaining about default anymore, but look, duplicate declaration get email. We cannot rename that easily. I cannot say get admin email, right? You remember, it won't work. It won't work. It doesn't throw an exception, but if I try to do that, get user email and get admin email, look, you see? Get user email and get admin email. And then once I try to invoke them, it says get admin email is not exported. So what do we do, guys? Because we need to rename them.
Get email as.
That's correct. That's correct. Thankfully, in JavaScript, we can have an alias. Get email as get user email and get email as get admin email or whatever, right? Here on the right-hand side, that's the alias. So we can rewrite, we can put whatever we want, right? So now, further on at the bottom, get user email and get admin email. And then hopefully, right, interestingly, it's not displaying anything. Right, oh, it was Zoom, sorry. Yeah, and you can see the difference, right? So now, okay, let me rename the guys because otherwise, oh no, sorry, it's not working. Why is it not working? That's correct. Because of the copy and paste, we are still passing the user, but we should pass the admin. So once we change it, you see it's different data, right? On top, user, Peter. At the bottom, admin, Mary, with different greeting, Mr. probably doesn't make sense with Mary, but I hope you get the point. And then the logic is different as well, right? Plain email, email with exclamation mark. So we can definitely integrate multiple functions with the same name. Any questions? No? So the last thing for this session is to be able to deal with the paths. What the // means? Correct. That's correct, Patrick. // means both resources, the imported and the exported one, they sit on the same folder. They are siblings, they are brothers or sisters. But obviously, that may not be the case all the time. Admin utils, let's do something. Let's create a folder called utils, and I'll move my util file, admins and user, I'll move both to the utils folder. And then suddenly everything stopped working, because the files are not on the same directory as app.jas. So what do we need to do now? Add the folder structure, that's correct, Nilofer. So here, look, as soon as you start typing /, VS Code will automatically suggest you the folder structure. So you can even interactively click on it, and then, you see, it's pretty convenient, isn't it? And same for admin, utils, and admin, and then it works. So that's the way you drill down to the deeper level of your folder structure. And can we have a problem on the other way around? What happened? I create the last component, new file called Friday utils.js, and on Friday utils I'm going to export default function order a beer. Look at how stupid examples quickly became, right? And that method will say, I need a beer, please. Right? So we have a new component that sits on a parent folder of the utils. They are not in the same directory, you see? But now, because whoever is an admin on the platform will be allowed to order a beer. So here, I want to import that method and add the message somewhere, full name, email, it doesn't matter, right? So how do we import order a beer? From where? How do we specify a folder that is in a parent folder? Dot, that's correct. That's correct. Look, instead of dot slash, dot slash. Not the double dot. With the double dot, we're going up one level. Can we do dot? Of course, yes. So we can navigate up as many levels as necessary. But then, dot slash, I can select my Friday utils file, and then, of course, I can simply invoke it somewhere. Right? So if we do that, let me see again. My code tends to disappear. Don't ask me why. Here we go. Again, here it is, right? So you can see that on the admin, welcome, name of the person with Mr. on top, and then that method is invoking another method that sits in a different file in a parent folder. Dot. Any questions? Does that make any sense? Yeah. Obviously, when talking about import-export, we can deal with JavaScript functions, but React components. You started to create components with React, right? The gallery, the TV show, you have some components. So I hope you have these components on separate files. But if that's not the case, I strongly recommend you to move them out from the main app.js. The files, the shorter, the better. As you will see next month, while working on your team app, you'll unfortunately be likely to have conflicts. What a conflict means: if I only have one file in my app.js, that's all I have. I don't import, I don't export anything. It's all here. I have a 30,000 line file. If I'm changing a line here and Anais is changing another line, we're likely to have conflicts because we're both trying to modify the same resource. So who is right, who is wrong? That's sometimes painful. We need to review the code. We're likely to break our system. Because of that, the smaller the files are, the better. Because if we refactor a huge app.js into smaller chunks of code, then instead of both changing the same file, I may be changing user utils and Anais may be changing admin utils. If we change different files, no conflicts are likely to happen because they're different files. Yeah?
Even if we're changing the same file, wouldn't that be resolved in GitHub?
It depends. If, for instance, I change line number 2, hello, and you, Abdul, change line number 6, Abdul, so Git should be able to merge the changes. Yeah? And actually, Git has improved a lot over years trying to deal with this sort of conflicts. However, if I change line number 2 and you've changed line number 2, for Git, it's impossible to determine which version is the correct one. In that particular case, you'll have a problem, or I have a problem. Both will have a problem, because we'll have to sit together and say, hey, such a coincidence. We've changed the same line. Yeah? These sort of conflicts are more likely to happen than it looks like. So please don't think that, oh, but this is stupid, we are not going to change the same line. It happens. It happens. Because when we talk about changing the same line, it could be something like moving functions. So instead of get full name being on top, if I move it to the bottom, this is a conflict, right? That's conflict, because whatever was on line number 3 now is something completely different. So conflicts are likely to happen, as you will see. Will have to deal together with this issue, right? But the message is it's impossible to avoid them, but we can minimize the impact of having conflicts by working with smaller files. I'm not a big fan of having scripts with many exportable functions. I always try to have one file, one exported function. That's the way I make sure that my files are small. If I need to add a second exportable function, I would rather create a new file for that method. I know that sounds a bit extreme, but in the long term, these strategies help to scale your software, because you'll end up having lots of small files, and the smaller the file is, the easier to maintain, to extend, to read, to test. We'll be talking about testing next month, right? All these things. Anything else? Yep.
Sorry, what's the difference, or what would you say is the difference between module packages and libraries?
Oh, so there is a gray zone. I don't think the standards give you an exact definition of what a module is, what a package is, what a library is. So generally speaking, when you create a file in JavaScript, it's considered a module. That's why maybe you hear about something called ES6 modules. So when talking about ES6 modules, we talk about that. Yeah? A library is something that you install and you use. For instance, React. Maybe you've noticed that when you create a React component, app.js, look at the very first line. Import React, blah, 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 from React. We don't have any dot slash or anything like that, right? Why that works? Because React is a system library. So there are some special dependencies that you don't need to put the path, because they are some sort of global. Yeah, that's a library. We'll have a future workshop to talk about a very important file on every JavaScript project called package.json. If you're curious, I'll recommend you to spend some minutes trying to understand what's going on this file. So we mentioned module, we mentioned library. Yeah, again, there is no specific definition about these terms, but this is simply what the way the community likes to address them. Anything else? No? Cool. So that was it. Thank you, guys.